Minimax M3's output tokens cost 25 times less than GPT 5.6. Sol at list price, GPT 5.6. Sol charges $30 per million output tokens, and Minimax M3 charges $240. Same task, same tokens, wildly different bill. Both models dropped recently, and people are already spinning up API keys, so you want to know which one actually makes sense before you commit. I'm comparing Minimax M3 versus GPT 5.6 Sol across 5 real tests, and every number is sourced. No vendor money, no cherry picking. Honestly, the cost gap is so big, it almost doesn't matter which model is smarter. But there's one use case where GPT 5.6 Sol might still be worth every extra dollar, and I didn't see it coming until I got into the numbers. So if you're a developer running agent loops, long doc pipelines, or high volume inference, the model you pick here directly hits your monthly bill and your production reliability. And pick wrong, and you're either overpaying by an order of magnitude or you're locked into a single provider with no fallback. Test 1 is inference speed and latency. When your model is slow, your agent loop stalls, your users bounce, and every extra second of wait time in a real-time app is a conversion you lose. Okay, so what I found here is pretty interesting. GPT 5.6 Sol hits up to 750 tokens per second on Cerebras hardware, which is genuinely fast, but Minimax M3 claims a 15 times decode speedup over its previous model at 1 million token context, with no published absolute figure, so you're comparing different hardware and different setups. Take this one with a grain of salt. GPT 5.6 Sol's 750 Tok-S is a best-case Cerebras number, not what you'll see on a standard API call, and Minimax's speedup is relative to their own older model, so until someone runs both on the same testbed, you can't really crown a winner here. I was expecting GPT 5.6 Sol to run away with this one, but the data just isn't there to make that call cleanly. The measurements aren't comparable, so I'm calling it a tie, and the scoreboard stays flat. Minimax M3 0, GPT 5.6 Sol 0, 1 tied. Test 2 is cost and pricing. Run a few thousand API calls, and the wrong pricing tier doesn't just sting. It can blow your whole monthly budget before you realize it. And I've seen devs burn through hundreds of dollars in a single agent loop gone wrong. Alright, so here's what I looked at. Minimax M3 input tokens run 0.30 per million on promo and 0.60 at list, while GPT 5.6 Sol is 5.0 per million. And on the output side, Minimax is 1.20 to 2.40 per million versus GPT 5.6. Sol is $30, which is not a small gap. That's a different price category entirely. Now, both models add a long context surcharge, so the gap gets a little more complicated at scale. Minimax doubles its rate past 512k tokens and GPT 5.6. Sol does the same past 272k, so Minimax is still cheaper overall, but if you're literally hammering the full context window constantly, run the math for your specific workload. I was expecting a gap, but 8 to 25 times cheaper across the board really shocked me, and Minimax M3 takes this one clean, so the score moves to Minimax M3 1, GPT 5.6 Sol 0, with 1 tie still on the board. Test 3 is context window and long document handling. Hit the output token ceiling mid-generation, and your model just stops right in the middle of a code diff or a summary, and you have to chunk it manually or pay for another full call. What surprised me here is the output side. Both models are basically tied on context window. Minimax M3 at 1 million tokens and GPT 5.6, Sol at 1.05 million. But max output is where they split hard because Minimax M3 tops out at 524,288 output tokens while GPT 5.6 Sol caps at 128,000, which is a 4 times difference. To be fair, most tasks don't need 524k output tokens in a single call. So if you're doing short Q&A or standard chat, the 128k ceiling on GPT 5.6 Sol is probably fine. But if you're generating full codebases, long-form reports, or book-length summaries, Minimax's output ceiling is a real advantage you'll actually use. I was expecting this to be a near tie since both hit 1 million tokens, but the output gap is way bigger than I thought, and Minimax M3 takes it on the strength of that 524k output ceiling. So we move to Minimax M3 2, GPT 5.6 Sol 0, 1 still tied. Test 4 is reasoning and coding. Pick the wrong model here, and your agent writes code that looks right but breaks in production, and you don't catch it until a user does. which means a support ticket, a rollback, and a bad day you could have avoided. So I looked at what benchmarks each model actually published, and this is where it gets tricky. Minimax M3 scored 59% on SWE Bench Pro and 83.5% on BrowseComp, while GPT 5.6 Soul hit 88.8% on Terminal Bench 2.1, and those are completely different test suites, so I can't directly compare them. Take this one with a grain of salt. SWE Bench Pro and Terminal Bench measure different coding tasks, and vendors pick the benchmarks they look best on, so until a neutral third party runs both models through the same suite. These numbers are directional, not definitive. Honestly, I was expecting one of these to clearly pull ahead on coding, but different benchmarks, different tasks, no shared baseline means this one's a tie, and I'm calling it that, so the score now sits at Minimax M3 2, GPT 5.6, Soul 0, 2 tied. Test 5 is API availability and reliability. Your provider goes down during a product launch with no fallback, and that's real downtime your users feel. And being locked into a single endpoint with no multi-provider option is a single point of failure you probably don't want in production. What I found here is pretty clear. Minimax M3 is already live on OpenRouter, Allama Cloud, and Fireworks with both OpenAI compatible and Anthropic compatible endpoints, while GPT 5.6 Soul is still in limited preview, OpenAI only, with usage tier restrictions, and that's a big gap in flexibility right now. I was expecting GPT 5.6 Soul to at least have broad access by now, but it's still gated, so Minimax M3 wins this one on pure availability and multi-provider flexibility, and that closes out the scoreboard at Minimax M3 3, GPT 5.6 Soul 0 with 2 ties. Minimax M3 wins on cost, output capacity, and access. Input tokens are 8 times cheaper at list price. Output tokens are up to 25 times cheaper, and the 524K output ceiling crushes GPT 5.6 Soul's 128K cap, plus it's already on OpenRouter, Fireworks, and Allama with a $20 per month plan for individual devs. GPT 5.6 Soul wins on raw speed and agentic coding. Up to 750 tokens per second on Cerebras is genuinely fast, and its Terminal Bench 2.1 score of 88.8% shows strong autonomous coding chops, and its context window also edges ahead at 1.05 million tokens versus Minimax M3's 1 million. I was expecting this to be closer, but Minimax M3 ran away with it on cost and availability, so here's the decision rule. If you're running high-volume inference, agent loops, or long-form generation, go Minimax M3. $20 a month, 25 times cheaper output. If you need peak coding speed and can afford it, GPT 5.6 Soul is your call.